Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. There's even a brand new Brigadier General tier where you can get a shout out on a Commander's Quarters episode that's dedicated to you. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. Before this episode gets started, please, if you have not seen the Wort, the Raidmother, Motherlode deck tech, make sure you check that episode out first. This episode is the Break the Bank version of that episode, and if you don't have that episode for context, well, this episode probably won't make all that much sense. So if you haven't watched it, make sure you go watch it, and actually, I'll just wait for you now. Okay, you're back. You've watched it. Awesome. This is, of course, the Break the Bank version of the Wort the Raidmother deck. And on a Break the Bank such as this one, we take our budget all the way up to $100. So on this episode, I'm going to walk you through what upgrades we're going to be adding into the deck and what we're going to be taking out too. And just like that deck tech episode, this episode comes to you courtesy of David, who's been supporting this channel as a Golden Pig tier patron. I truly couldn't do this without the support from amazing patrons like David, so again, David, thank you so much. And just a quick reminder, David chose Wort the Raidmother for the deck tech with a focus on spells that make creatures into spells that make more creatures. Wort the Raidmother is a 3/3 Goblin Shaman for 4 Gruul, and when she enters the battlefield, you get 2 1/1 red and green Goblin Warrior creature tokens. Each red or green instant or sorcery spell you cast has Conspire, so basically you can tap 2 untap creatures that share a color with it to copy the spell. So again, the deck has a lot of cards that make creature tokens, so you make creature tokens. You copy the spells that make creature tokens, you get even more creature tokens. Then you copy more spells. You see where this is going. Regardless, again, you should already know all this because of course you've already seen the deck tech. So with all that said, let's jump into the upgrades. So with my first 2 upgrades, well, I've got a question for you. Have you ever wanted to just get every single land out of your library into play? Yes? Great, let's add in Harvest Season and Boundless Realms. Harvest Season is a sorcery for 2 and a green that says search your library for up to X basic land cards where X is the number of tapped creatures you control and put those cards onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. Again, we can make a massive army with this deck in absolutely no time. And then by either attacking with that army or by conspiring them to cast spells, we can have a lot of tapped creatures for Harvest Season and basically go get every single basic land card from our deck into play. Because again, even if it's not going to get us all of them from just those tapped creatures, if we conspire this, we do it twice. So yes, this ramp spell does have a condition, but it's a condition that's pretty easy for this deck to meet, and it's just 3 mana. It's pretty absurd. And speaking of absurd, a ramp spell that's not 3 mana but doesn't have that same condition is Boundless Realms. It's a sorcery for 6 and a green, but again with this deck we can ramp very quickly and easily, so 7 mana is no big deal. It says search your library for up to X basic land cards where X is the number of lands you control and put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So with this, again, we don't have to worry about whether our creatures are tapped or untapped, we just have to count our lands, and then of course we're going to conspire this and count them again. Or, just do basic math and just double it. So as long as we've got enough basic lands in our deck, we essentially triple the number of lands that we have in play with 1 spell. Yeah, that is a worthy upgrade for this kind of a deck. Moving on, another way to get an absurd amount of mana comes with a very low to the ground enchantment with Cryptolith Rite. It's an enchantment for just 1 and a green, and it says, creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. You know it can be effective with a deck that makes a ton of creature tokens, essentially making all those creature tokens into mana dorks. So this can help things get even more out of control, helping us cast spell after spell after spell. Just make sure you're careful when tapping certain creatures because you want to make sure you have the right creature color for the Conspire spells. I I said that in kind of a weird way. Make sure you've got the right creatures of the right color for the right spells to conspire. It's confusing to say regardless, okay? You know what I mean. Next up, though, let's talk about Primal Amulet, an artifact for 4 that says instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Again, in this deck, we have an absurd amount of instants and sorcery, so this can help reduce the cost of them. Or at least I should say, some of them. Because it also says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on Primal Amulet. Then if there are 4 more charge counters on it, you may remove those counters and transform it. So if we feel like flipping it, we can very easily do that, and when we do, we get Primal Wellspring. Primal Wellspring is a land that can tap to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, and when that mana is spent to cast an instant or sorcery spell, we copy that spell and choose new targets for the copy. So we lost the mana reduction, but we technically ramp by getting a land, and a very effective one that can help us copy even more spells. Speaking of which, let's also add in Twinning Staff. It's an artifact for 3 that says if you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time, you may choose your targets for the copy. On top of that, by paying 7 and tapping it, we copy target instant or sorcery spell we control, and we can choose new targets for the copy. So even just ignoring that activated ability, by having this in play for just 3 mana, just 1 initial investment of 3 mana, every single time we copy a spell, again with Conspire, we double up on that. And obviously, again, like I've mentioned before, we've got plenty of ramp in this stack and we have access to a ton of mana, so yeah, if we want to copy things further, we can. Speaking of which, Second Harvest can copy things in a different way. It's an instant 4/2 green that says for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. Instant speed, 4 mana, double up on your token army, then double up on it again. Yeah, sign me up for that. Your opponents might think they're somewhat safe when right before your turn you've only got 10 creature tokens, and I do say only because that is a low amount for this deck, and then you double that amount and double it again, and now you're at what, 40 tokens out of nowhere? And of course, things can get even crazier with Mizzix's Mastery, especially when we overload it. It says exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy and you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost, exile Mizzix's Mastery. You know all those spells that made all those creature tokens? Well, let's just cast them all again. And the ramp spells too, because we need even more mana as well. Moving on though, a big upgrade for this deck is Purphoros, God of the Forge. It's a 6/5 god, but that really doesn't matter all that much. It is indestructible, which is very effective, and it says as long as your devotion red is less than 5, Purphoros isn't a creature. We really don't care actually to make this a creature. We're fine with it just being an enchantment. Because it has, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Purphoros deals 2 damage to each opponent. The amount of damage that this can dish out in a deck like this is just ridiculous. And of course, on top of that, we can pay 2 in a red, and creatures we control get +1/+0 until end of turn, because why not just slap that onto this as well? So if getting our creature tokens into play doesn't take out our opponents, swinging with them will. Next up though, we also have some ways to protect our commander and our team with Lightning Greaves and Heroic Intervention. Lightning Greaves is going to give a quick creature haste and shroud, and Heroic Intervention says permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So Lightning Greaves is incredibly effective, especially with our commander and protecting her, and Heroic Intervention, well, is just pretty much one of the best ways to protect your team. For just 2 mana at instant speed, we protect our entire board. Yeah, sign me up for that. And finally, we're also going to be upgrading some of our lands with Reliquary Tower and Bala Ged Recovery. With our ability to Conspire, we can draw an absurd amount of cards with a lot of these spells in this deck, so yeah, Reliquary Tower, giving us no maximum hand size, is a nice upgrade. And then Bala Ged Recovery is a great and flexible MDFC land that's going to return target card from our graveyard to our hand, or of course on the backside, it's just going to be a land that enters battlefield tapped and can tap for a green. An extra regrowth in your deck just taking up a land slot in your deck is never a bad thing. But now that we've talked about every single card that we're going to add into this deck, let's talk about the cards that we're taking out. Now again, as I always say, and I just want to mention this quickly, just because these cards are getting taken out of the deck does not mean that they are bad cards. It just means that the upgrades for this deck are more impactful, and some cards need to be cut because of that. So because of that, we're going to be removing Roiling Regrowth, Emergent Sequence, Molten Birth, Chatter the Squirrel, Sprout Swarm, Reap the Pass, Scatter the Seeds, Fall of the Titans, Withstand Death, and Mending Touch. And because we added 2 lands into this deck, we're going to be taking 2 lands out of the deck, and we're going to be taking out a forest and a mountain. But now that we've talked about every single card that we're adding into the deck and every single card that we're taking out of the deck, let's talk about the price. Like I mentioned at the start of this episode, on these Break the Banks, we upped that budget all the way up to $100, and this one got, well, pretty close. The estimated cost for this upgraded deck is $99.54. And keep in mind there can be some additional savings if you've already got those basic lands, because those basic lands are being counted at 10 cents a piece. And speaking of additional savings, you can potentially save even more in this deck by buying it on TCG Player and utilizing heavily played and damaged cards, because as always, those cards need a home too. Though do keep in mind that this cost does not include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon your location. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.